Hey guys, welcome to another podcast of Losers Ball. We are in our second episode so far. I'm your host Ben alongside Ilan.
Hey Ben, it's nice to be back. I'm excited for another big episode.
Hey, we have a great episode planned for you, but before we get into the episode, if you're not following us on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, then what are you doing with yourselves? Follow us at Losers Ball Pod. We post updates about showtime, about our episodes. We post content. We tweet. We like to get inside the NBA action. So if you're not following us at Losers Ball Pod on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, you're wasting your time. And before we start with the episode, Ilan, what is going on in the NBA? The Cleveland Cavaliers are 3-0, sitting on top of the Eastern Conference. The Knicks just beat the Bucks. The Nets just lost to the Hornets. What is this madness?
The NBA is always unpredictable. I mean, end of the day, we know that the Lakers will come out on top in the end of the season, but throughout the season, there's always these fun nights, these different, weird anomalies that happen. But as crazy as those three games were, I mean, the Clippers got bodied last night or yesterday afternoon. They got absolutely demolished. They're down by 50 at halftime. The lead extended by the end of the game to 51. I'm wearing a Mavericks jersey right now just to show my support to Luka. And I hope that Kawhi and Serge are regretting moving from Toronto. They would have been a lot better off with the Raptors. That's all I can say.
That that 50-point loss really brings me back to my high school days. You walk into an opposing gym and you're just like, here we go again, getting bodied by 40. But I have to show some support for the New York Knicks today. Knocking off the potential Eastern Conference champs. Hey, win's a win. A win's a win. That's great motivation for them.
Yeah, it's probably the happiest day in the James Dolan era for any Knicks fan. So I'm sure they're all reeling. But yeah, it brings me back to my high school basketball days also. We had one game where we lost by 79 points. By the end of that game, our strategy was don't let them get to 100. And thank God we didn't. Hopefully it can get a little bit better for the Clippers. They can make the season a little bit more competitive.
Also, rumor has it might even be a holiday in New York City today over that win against the Bucks. So, good stuff from them. Hopefully they could keep the momentum. I don't know. We might have to change our predictions for this year's final standings, but we'll see what happens as the season goes. Anyways, beginning of the season always seems like we're talking about expansion. Last week, Adam Silver was asked about it. He said it's an idea that they're looking into, and we know it's going to happen. It looks like each league in North America is trying to expand to 32 teams. The NHL is already at 31, expanding to 32 next year when the Seattle Kraken comes in. The NFL is already at 32. And I think it's safe to say that the NBA and the MLB will follow soon. Expansion provides many benefits for the leagues. And this is something that we haven't seen since 2002, since Charlotte was awarded an expansion franchise.
End of the day, as routine as these talks are about relocation and expansion every single year, this past week that when Adam Silver mentioned it again, it brought a lot more legitimacy to the situation, and not just because every league wants to expand and get more revenue, get more money, but especially with COVID, the amount of revenue that was lost from the missed opportunity from the fans in the stadium, from the lost games, bringing in an extra team to the league or extra two teams can really help get back that money. And so I think that especially with COVID, there's a lot more urgency to get those teams into the league.
Yeah, as you mentioned, it could bring in a lot of revenue for the teams. Back in 2002 when Charlotte was awarded their expansion team, the fee for the expansion team was $300 million. They're predicting it for the next team or two teams to come into the league around $1 billion, which will be redistributed. Yes, if you have $1 billion in pocket change, you could get an NBA franchise, which will be redistributed amongst all the other teams. And I think it's pretty safe to say that for Seattle, it's not if they get an expansion team, but when. I have a hard time seeing another team being relocated immediately, but I think Seattle will probably be awarded an expansion team. We've seen the NBA go back to cities that have lost a team, for example, Charlotte. So I think it's very safe to say that we could, we might see the Seattle Supersonics come back one day.
Yeah, Ben. Hopefully, we can get some sponsors for the podcast so we can get enough money to afford a basketball team. Hopefully, we'll get billions of dollars soon.
Yeah, I mean Seattle's losers balls might be the next team name. We'll see. We'll see what we can do with that.
But yeah, I think Seattle's a given. I think that, there's talks about Atlanta relocating a few years ago, Sacramento. Anytime there's any talks about a team moving, Seattle is the obvious location. They've been dying for a team ever since the Supersonics went to Oklahoma City. And so I think that it's not who's going to get that team. It's an obvious that Seattle will be that next city who will join the NBA. The question, though, for me would be that if they expand to 32 teams, if Seattle is the given that they'll for sure be the 31st team, who's the 32nd team, in your opinion? If you had to rank the top 3 most realistic cities, what would be the 3 cities for you?
Yeah, I mean, number one for me, it has to be Vegas. I mean, a couple of years ago, the NHL tapped into that market, giving them an expansion franchise, the Vegas Golden Knights, and they've been wildly successful. They sell out the arena. Fans are very loyal to them. The NFL just recently moved into the market as the Oakland Raiders moved to become the Vegas Raiders' new stadium. And Vegas just makes a lot of sense right now. The NBA's hosted an All-Star game. Funny enough, before Toronto even hosted a game. So, you can see that the NBA is very focused on Vegas. They have an NBA-ready arena and T-Mobile Arena. And I think the team would be competitive right away. I think Vegas would be able to land a lot of free agents. I think they'd be very successful.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that Vegas is a very likely city to host another NBA franchise. They do have an NFL team and an NHL team, and along with the All-Star Weekend they hosted, they actually host every summer league tournament there in Vegas as well. So I think that, especially also with the growing market of sports betting and how the NBA is always constantly searching for another market and to grow the business and their revenues, I think going into the heart of the country and the continent where gambling happens the most, Vegas would make a lot of sense. For me, though, as likely as Vegas is for another NBA team, I think the most likely city that'll get a team is Mexico City. The NBA has been very, very vocal how they want to be a global league. There's been talks about them going to London, to all over the world, and they've played exhibition games all over the world, as well as Mexico City. Adam Silver has mentioned in the past about having a G League team there in Mexico City, and I think that we have teams in America and in Canada, and if they want to continue expanding to North America, Mexico City is the next spot. There's already an NBA-ready arena there. I think for me, the most likely city would be Mexico City. What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, it sounds pretty interesting. One of the issues that you have is, the currency issues, Mexico operating with the peso. That could be an issue. It might be more expensive to operate a franchise there. And also, it's a language issue. Not everyone's first language is Spanish, or not everyone knows Spanish. Obviously, players they get used to, living in Mexico City. But, I mean, that could be a deterrent when you're giving a city a franchise. Some players, they might not want to go to a new country, and if Toronto's having issues attracting free agents, I could only imagine Mexico City would also have the same issue. Although the weather is nicer, so that could be a bigger difference as why people don't want to sign Toronto compared to Mexico City.
I definitely get that, but end of the day, if players want the bag, they'll get the bag anywhere. Mexico City will give them enough money. Toronto's been dealing with the Canadian dollar versus the U.S. dollar. End of the day, everyone gets paid in American dollars, all the players, so they'll just be spending pesos versus spending U.S. dollars. They can probably attract a lot of overseas players, a lot of South American players, Spanish players, and it could end up being a big free agent market for people who are coming from overseas. We've seen that the bright stars of the future with Giannis and Luka are European players, and if more and more of the top players in the NBA are European, it could be they have no issue with playing in Mexico City. So for me, I think that they're the most likely city to get it franchised, with Vegas following them in second. But I really think that Mexico City would be the next most likely situation.
Mm-hmm. I mean, like you said before, the NBA is very interested in Mexico City with the G League trying to get a franchise there. But I think one city that you might see be in the mix in the future would be Kansas City. I mean, hear me out. They previously hosted an NBA team. Sacramento Kings, prior to moving to Sacramento, were known as the Kansas City Kings. They have an NBA-ready arena, the T-Mobile Center, formerly known as the Sprint Center. And they were actually, in talks with the Raptors to host them for the 2020-2021 season. Unfortunately, Toronto decided to go with Tampa instead of Kansas City, but they were still in that race to try to land the Raptors. The arena's also hosted several college basketball games, from March Madness to regular season and tournaments. So I think it could very well be a very viable option. And if you see the NBA, expanding into the West for Seattle, you might want a team that's maybe more central or closer east to even out the divisions. You have Seattle in the West, that brings the West to 16 teams in the conference, and now you could have Kansas City playing in the Eastern Conference, which would even out at 16. So maybe, two teams in the, the NBA might opt for, one team in the West, one team in the East. I don't think that's too crazy to see.
So let me throw out one other idea for you, connected to the whole Raptors, where they would play in this season. Another team that was rumored to host the Raptors was Louisville, Kentucky, and I can see them also, being another city that can get an NBA franchise. They've tried to get teams in the past. They've tried getting expansion teams or getting teams to relocate to Louisville various times in history. They tried getting the Buffalo Braves to move there in 1978, the Cavs to move there in 1983. They tried getting each of the Rockets, the Hornets, and the Grizzlies to move there in the early 2000s. They have two potential NBA viable arenas that have both hosted NBA exhibition games in the past. They've clearly have a desire to have a basketball team in the city, and they're a basketball crazy town. They're right now dominated by college basketball. And I think that they're ready to make that leap to the NBA. I really can see that happening as well. It's similar to a lot of the points that you were making with Kansas City. I can see the same thing happening in Louisville.
I mean, you could also ask yourself, how come Louisville hasn't attracted a team yet? Maybe that could be an issue. If they've been trying to bid for all these relocation, rumors. It's a city over 1 million, but maybe it's just a college basketball town. Maybe it's not ready for NBA. It could be. We don't know. Maybe the fans there would still rather see Louisville instead of watching an NBA franchise. I don't know, but it's just an idea.
All it takes is one guy with some really deep pockets to dish out $1 billion to bring a team to Louisville.
Is that you or is it someone else?
If we get enough sponsors, that can be us.
Yeah, if you're looking to get your name out, contact us at LosersBallPod on Twitter, TikTok, and Instagram, and we'd love to hear your offers. I don't think this city is going to get it in the near, the next expansion locations, but I think it could happen very soon, and that would be London in the United Kingdom. Just hear me out. I know it's been thrown around. Adam Silver's said, he hasn't denied that they've looked into expanding into Europe, but they have an NBA-ready arena, O2 Arena, which has hosted several major North American sporting events such as basketball and hockey. The London population is around 9 million, which would make them the second biggest market in the league, only behind New York. And, compared to Canada, the currency in the UK is way stronger. They would operate in the pound compared to the Canadian dollar, and the pound as of now is stronger than USD. So it's not like they'd be losing money during their operation. So it'd actually be probably one of the more healthier teams. Obviously, the issues you have is being 5 hours ahead from the Eastern time zone, which would cause issues, if a team from the West Coast has to play there. But I mean, as travel becomes more accessible and, flights are getting shorter and shorter, I think it very well could be realistic. You saw how successful expansion in Canada has been. When the Raptors were, when they first started playing in 95, 20 years later, you have all these Canadians joining the NBA, getting drafted, playing in college. I think you might see the same results in London, because right now, who do you think the biggest UK basketball player right now, who do you think it is?
Probably OG Anunoby, also from the Raptors.
OG Anunoby, and the only other one that I know is Luol Deng. I think if you put a franchise in the UK, I think you could very much have in 20 years, this burst of UK talent joining North American basketball. So I think it'd be very worthwhile for the NBA to do this. Plus, they'd be tapping into the market first, because we know the NFL has been very interested in moving one of their franchises there. So if the NBA could get it first, maybe they'll have more of a competitive advantage compared to other leagues.
So I think that it's a very good idea in theory and on paper. As a pipe dream, that makes a lot of sense. However, I think there's just too many flaws with the idea of bringing a team to London. Just for right now, in the current state of the NBA, the world, I think that the travel issue is too big of an issue. And although the NBA does want to be a global league, a global market, I think that there's still other cities to move to that make more sense for the NBA and for the league as a whole than London. I think, as I said earlier, Mexico City makes a lot more sense. There's also not too many Mexican players in the league right now, and they can also influence a whole generation of young Mexican athletes to come join the NBA. And I think that for them, The next logical step for me would be Mexico City. The travel issue isn't as big of a deal. They're in the same time zone as a lot of the cities. And I think as we've seen that travel is a big concern for a lot of the players right now in a lot of the leagues. A typical 82-game season, there's a lot of wear and tear. We're seeing players that are getting injured a lot more, and the travel definitely doesn't help. Especially we've seen this year, there's a lot more back-to-backs. So they're trying to work the schedule around travel and trying to accommodate the travel. But at the end of the day, travel is always an issue, especially in a long season like the NBA. It makes a lot more sense for the NFL when there's one game a week. But for a typical NBA schedule, the 82-game schedule there is right now, I think that London is more of a pipe dream than a reality.
I mean, it was just an idea thrown out there. I think one of the advantages that London has over Mexico City is that most of the players, speak the language. It's not like, they'd have to learn a new language. It's just obviously just an idea, and the NBA has looked into it. But for now, it definitely does seem like a dream. But I would like to see it happen one day.
Well, Ben, speaking about dreams, let's have a little fun right now. If you had to make an NBA team, if you had to pitch an idea to the NBA offices, to Adam Silver, and to the rest of the owners, and you had to pitch a team, the city, the team name, all the different things around that, and it could be anywhere, what would be your pitch? Who would the team be? What would be all the details about it? Let us hear your idea.
All right, hear me out. Here's the team. The Buffalo Isolationists. Buffalo Isolationists, yes. Buffalo, New York has an NBA-ready arena, Key Arena, where the Buffalo Sabres play. The mascot would be ISO, the broken table, shout out to Bills Mafia, and the colors would obviously be blue, red, and white. Why would I decide to put a team in Buffalo? Well, this isn't just your normal team. This is a consequence team. If there's a player that is acting out towards teammates, GMs, and ownership, for example, you could say James Harden, you ship their ass to Buffalo as a punishment because no one wants to go to Buffalo and play sports there. If you get sent there, Buffalo has to play all their 41 home games during the months of December to February, and it's 41 straight. You don't get to go to Florida for a nice couple away games in Orlando and Miami. You don't get to go to LA. You have to stay in Buffalo. You have to deal with the snowstorms, and this will deter players from pulling stunts, like throwing a basketball at your teammate during practice or anything like that. And in return, when you send a player there, the NBA will either give you a high draft pick or they'll give you the rights to some player. And hopefully this will help players be smarter about their decisions.
Okay, so I've got a few questions on that because that's a wild idea. My first question would be, does Buffalo also get to draft players, or is it only for punished players?
They have low draft picks. That's what it's probably going to be. That's what it's going to look like. But for one way to get out of Buffalo, if you play well, you smarten up, you become a UFA. So you don't have to worry about getting your contract offer matched by Buffalo. You could leave and you never have to come back. That's one of the advantages. It's kind of like prison, but for basketball. Because in any other league, in the NFL, you say one thing about not wanting to be on your team. Watch out, because you're getting sent to Buffalo. Which at the moment right now, if you're a football player, that's pretty good. You have a good team there. But for the NBA during the winter months, I don't know if you want to play in Buffalo.
So, if this is an expansion team, I'm just having a little bit of issues trying to understand this whole thing. Is the goal that there would end up being, down the line, no Buffalo team at all, and that all the players will smarten up, and that there's no need for a NBA team in Buffalo, and it'll go back to 30 teams? Or what happens then? What happens if there's not enough players in the league to fill a full NBA roster of players who are going out, skipping out on practices, demanding trades publicly, or doing anything else of the sorts?
No, the plan is to keep the franchise, obviously. But I think you'll have an abundance of star players that are unhappy with their current teams. It would obviously have to, kind of test it out. I don't think they're the next city, behind Vegas and Seattle, but it's just an idea.
Okay, so Ben's idea is to have an NBA franchise that'll never win a NBA title, have a bunch of disgruntled superstars, a ton of chemistry issues, and a lot of problems.
I mean, hey, you never know that they won't win an NBA title. They could have James Harden this year if they were to come in the league.
The only way to make that work would be to have a reality TV show watching behind the scenes, sort of like Keeping Up with the Kardashians, to really entertain the fans. So my idea was, I want to have a little bit of a small town kind of feel to the NBA, but also have an NBA ready franchise, an NBA ready city. So I was looking on the map of the United States, and I came across Reno, Nevada, known as the biggest little city in the world. And I had an idea for the Reno rattlesnakes. Actually happens to be a lot of rattlesnakes in the Reno region, and that there's actually a Rattlesnake Mountain State Park, which is one of Western America's largest state parks right outside of Reno. Other than the alliteration of the double R in the name, I think that rattlesnakes happen to be one of the few venomous snakes in northern Nevada, and I think that's the kind of ferocity that we want in Reno for the NBA team.
Also, a nice little tribute to Kobe.
Exactly. We can make them a black rattlesnake, have a little bit of the black mamba vibe going on. But I think that I want to really bring that little city feel to the NBA. And so here's my idea. We want to have a team in the desert with a retractable roof. Reno is known to be the sunniest city in America with on average 300 sunny days a year. So I don't think there'll be an issue of rainy days in the desert. And if there is a rainy day, then all of a sudden, we can close the roof and that's fine. And then with that retractable roof comes that little city feel, because within the stadium, you can feel that, almost everyone in the town is there. But also outside, the players can smell the tailgates happening outside and the barbecues happening outside. They can hear the fans cheering on those big screens outside. So I don't really actually want to use any of the viable university basketball courts or the G League team that played in Reno a few years ago used. I want to build a completely new stadium in Reno in the middle of the desert, the retractable roof. And I want really to feel that the whole town and the whole city is watching that team every night, whether they're in the stadium and cheering in the seats, or they're outside the stadium barbecuing and tailgating outside. I really want to bring that little city feel to the NBA.
Okay, now hear me out a second. Let me just test your geography quickly. Which state is Reno in?
Reno's in Nevada.
Nevada, okay. And if we full-heartedly think that Vegas is going to get an NBA team, what makes you think that Reno will be able to sustain an NBA team when they're basically going to be the Clippers of Nevada with Vegas having a basketball team?
Here's my idea. We have a team in Seattle, a team in Mexico City. The next team to come is Reno. Vegas is nice and all, but before Vegas was a big thing, Reno actually happened to be the original, town where gambling would happen. And that's where all the casinos started. Vegas took over that. But Reno is the OG. They're the original ones. It actually can provide a great town and a great home for a lot of the players. It actually has the highest number of ski resorts in America per capita. And there's also just the real day-to-day life in Reno. It's a great place for a player to either raise his family or go out and partying. If they want to raise a family, they actually held the Guinness World Record for the most people playing checkers at the same time with 540 people. There's a national bowling stadium. So every family likes to go bowling. They have the largest free hot air balloon event in the world called the Great Reno Balloon Race. They have the tallest climbing wall in the world. All these things sound fantastic to a family, to kids. And if you want to go, out, clubbing, drinking, and you want to live that bachelor lifestyle as an NBA player, Reno every year consistently makes the top 10 drunkest city list on average. So, you have the small town family lifestyle for the family men in the NBA, and for all the James Hardens and the Danwell houses in the NBA, you got the drunk city also. It's the perfect balance. Bring the Reno Rattlesnakes to the NBA. I want to see it. What's your counter argument to that?
I mean, maybe there's a reason why the Sacramento Kings moved the Reno Bighorns from Reno to Stockton for their G League team. I think you might have mentioned all the reasons why they decided to do that instead of leave their team in Reno. But I mean, your idea is crazy. Having a team in Buffalo seems kind of crazy, but maybe like 20 or 30 years down, one of these cities gets an expansion team, and someone finds our podcast and clips this clip to say, you know what, these guys got it right.
You're trying to build the NBA prison. I'm trying to build the NBA's next big hometown. I think I'm the winner here. With Rico the Rattlesnake running up and down the stands in Reno, I think it's the perfect NBA town. Let's bring the retractable roof to the NBA. Let's not leave that exclusively an MLB or NFL thing. Let's have these street ball kind of feels. Bring basketball into the desert. I'm all for it.
Maybe like a Big Three league team, yes, but I don't know about the NBA. All right, so Ilan, I have a bit of a conspiracy theory that people might not want to hear, but I think, we're talking about Vegas, we're talking about expansion, we're talking about relocation. I think that the next team to be relocated in the NBA might be the San Antonio Spurs. Now, I know Spurs fans are very loyal, lots of history, but hear me out. There's a bit of a pattern of what I'm about to say. It could be very well a big stretch, but just hear me out. I'm not necessarily saying it's going to happen. Just listen. So over the past few years, the owner of the San Antonio Spurs, Spurs Sports and Entertainment, has sold a couple of their franchises to groups in Vegas. In 2017, the San Antonio Stars of the WNBA were sold to MGM Resorts International, and they moved to Vegas, became the Las Vegas Aces. In February 2020, the Vegas Golden Knights of the NHL purchased the San Antonio Rampage of the American Hockey League and moved them to Vegas as their minor league affiliate. So this is kind of concerning. Two franchises owned by the same ownership as the Spurs have moved to Vegas, and this most recent move by the Rampage caught all the players, all the personnel off guard. No one saw it coming. They were blindsided and disappointed by this decision. Vegas is a city that might, build up on their history of snatching established teams, I should say, from cities. This past year, they took the beloved Oakland Raiders and moved them to Vegas. No one would have thought that would have happened. And this idea of the Spurs to Vegas, it's kind of been, rumored a bit. Shaq mentioned it in one of his podcasts back in May. It's just an idea. It's not necessarily set in stone, but I think, it very well could happen. And I think, if the Austin Spurs, the Spurs G League team, if they move or if they're up for sale, then I think, that is a sign that the Spurs are on their way out of San Antonio. What do you think about that?
Ben, you are out of your mind if you think the San Antonio Spurs are going to leave San Antonio.
Hey. I never said that it was definitely going to happen, but I'm just saying, 1 + 1 = 2, and 2 + 2 is 4. And I'm just saying, just a theory. I know this is gonna upset a lot of people. We'll try to put like a trigger warning on it, but this is just what I'm thinking.
I have no credible sources, but I can break the news right now that the San Antonio Spurs will stay in San Antonio. That is absurd that you can think there's a possibility they can go to Vegas. The difference between the Las Vegas Aces going from San Antonio to Vegas is that they're a WNBA team. No one cares to watch the WNBA game. The difference between the AHL team going to Vegas is that they are a minor league hockey team. No one cares to watch a minor league hockey team. The Spurs are beloved in San Antonio. There is zero chance that they'll ever move out of San Antonio. They've been a steady NBA franchise. They've been, a dynasty. They've been constantly, they made the playoffs, I think, for 20 years straight before missing the playoffs last year. You'd have to probably pry Tim Duncan and Greg Popovich out of San Antonio before you can move the franchise there, let alone all the fans that are going to, rampage and riot in the streets if they ever hear, rumors that their team is going to move, let alone it actually happening. I think you're going to upset a lot of San Antonio fans right now. They might be coming for you. Just watch out.
I mean, crazier things have happened, but we have to remember at the end of the day, this is a business. If there's more money to be made in Vegas than San Antonio, I don't think it's that crazy that, you have a bunch of, rich investors from Vegas trying to, if they can't land an expansion team, then try to move a team already in the NBA. And, San Antonio is just a one-team city. I think if they do leave, it would be detrimental to the city, as, I'm sure the city really revolves around the Spurs. But I'm just saying, look at this pattern. That's all I'm saying out here.
Yeah, it's a business, and I think that the San Antonio fans have proven loyal to the Spurs. I actually just found, just now looking up online, a article from Bleacher Report from a few years back saying which are the most loyal fans in the NBA, and it had the Spurs fans at number 4. They've actually had the actual home attendance was at 100.1%, more than maximum capacity, which means they've been filling up standing room as well. So it's basically impossible to get a ticket in San Antonio. They're not going anywhere, not even for just, the fans want it, but it's proven to be a big business, a successful business. I would be shocked if that ever happened. I think you're going to have a lot of angry fans coming at you.
I mean, we said the same thing about Seattle, 10 years ago, 12 years ago, but look what happened there. No one thought that the Supersonics would be relocating, but here we are, 12 years later with OKC in the league. So yeah, it is crazy, but it's never impossible.
If Vegas wants to pry an NBA team from their city, they should try looking for a less successful franchise or one with less fans. Maybe go for like Sacramento or something, somewhere where the repercussions won't be as big.
Sacramento's not moving. They're not moving. They just got a new arena. They're not going anywhere.
So then take the Knicks for all I care about. James Dolan will sell the team to make some more money.
I think they might pay you to keep the Knicks. They know no one wants the Knicks in their city.
It's a nice conspiracy theory. There's clearly some thought there, but I think
that's all it is. That's all it is. It's only a conspiracy theory. That's all it is right now. Don't panic. Just enjoy this season. Don't read into it too much.
Well, Ben, I think it's been a fun one. It's always fun to talk about relocation.
It's been, like you said, relocation. It's always fun to talk about. Making up all these theories. Trying to see which cities might land a team next. It's been a fun episode, and can't wait for what's in store for our next week's episode. Like I said earlier in the podcast, if you're watching on YouTube, all of our socials are in the description. If you want to follow us on TikTok, Twitter, and Instagram, you can find us at LosersBallPod.
And to all you fans in Reno, Nevada, I'm looking out for you guys. I'll be advocating for a team in Reno for the next few years. You guys are worthy of an expansion team for me, way more than Buffalo. I mean,
hey, Buffalo, it wouldn't be that crazy of an idea if you guys got a franchise. Just imagine games against Toronto, against Detroit, against Cleveland. Battle of the Great Lakes. It already has a good name to it. To our one fan, to our one listener in Turkey, I don't know how you found us, but to our one fan in Turkey, all I have to say to you is gule gule. Happy buckets, everyone, and we'll see you next week.
Looking forward till next week.